All right, so we're looking at a retelling of a creation story from a European perspective. So right away, we know this is going to be biased. But the reason I like to do this is sometimes it's the only way we can get to the history. Um, if the documents have been lost or if they were never written down, um, the storytellers themselves haven't survived, right? This might be the only way we could get to the history. So it's a good way for us to kind of think about how we can use sources that we know are problematic, but can we still kind of pull anything from them that's of value? We're pretty much going to agree that they are biased, and in that respect, they're difficult for us to use. But again, something for us to think about. So oftentimes when we discuss this document in class, initially students completely dismiss it and they're like, nope, there's nothing we can use in this. And that's fair, right? I mean, it starts off with, saying that the Indians are somewhat wild. These young Indians are somewhat wild, right? So right there, we know this person has a biased perspective. It also notes here that when the story of the Christian creation story is told to them, they cannot believe or they will not understand. They say according to their opinion of the world, right? So the Native Americans have an opinion about the world, but the European feels like his story is like the truth. So right there, that gives us a little bit more of that biased perspective. They say here towards the end that they question that whether or not the Europeans question whether or not this can be real, like a real story because it's not been written down, right? They say they say is all they have learned from their fathers on the subject of creation, which has been handed down to them and which they believe is true, right? So they believe it to be true. He seems to be saying, we know it's not true, is kind of the implication there. So yes, for the most part, this retelling tells us more about Europeans than it does about Native Americans, as is often the case if we're going to look at the source from the perspective of the oppressor. But if it's all we had, this person does in the retelling tell us that everything started with a woman, because we're trying to see if we can pull anything from women who fell from the sky. So we do know that creation began with a woman falling, that before that the world was covered in water. He notes that she's pregnant. He says gross or corpulent. He doesn't mean gross like disgusting, how we use gross today. He means gross like she's enlarged. It's a different usage of the word. And corpulent also means a similar thing, just larger. So not how we use those words today, but how he intended it. And so again, suggesting that she's pregnant, and says that she brings, will bring forth a child. We don't get the animals in this story, right? Which is also a huge thing that's missing. And she's not initially kind of seen as the person that's helping to create the world. It's just like they kind of showed up, right? So it is requiring a lot of connections to be made. And again, mostly overlooks the way in which the story was told when we put it from an indigenous perspective. But at the very least, we have a woman, the origins of the world starting with her, and the land kind of growing and increasing after her arrival. Again, though, I think we'll all agree that it's mostly a reflection it mostly tells us something about Europeans as opposed to Native Americans. Again, though, the point was just to kind of get us thinking about how we're using primary sources and whose perspective we're looking at when we look at primary sources. All right. If you have any questions, you can put those in the discussion board that goes along with our class. Send me an email. Take care. Bye-bye.